Hey everyone, and welcome. So, the rainy season here in the Philippines is upon us. It's that time of year that can either be a gardener's dream or, well, their biggest nightmare. So, today, we're going to dive right in and figure out how to make sure your garden doesn't just survive all this rain, but actually thrives in it. So, let me just ask you straight up, is your garden really ready for the rain? Because the difference between having a gorgeous, lush paradise and a sad, soggy mess, it all comes down to a bit of smart prep. And that's exactly what this is all about. You see, the rain is kinda two-faced. On one side, it's an amazing blessing. I mean, it's free water from the sky. What's not to love? But then there's the other side. It's a huge challenge. Too much of a good thing can lead to waterlogged roots, all sorts of diseases, and a whole bunch of other problems. It's a real balancing act. All right, so that brings us to our first major point. The game plan you had for the sunny season? Yeah, you can pretty much toss that out the window. The entire environment of your garden shifts, and if you don't shift with it, your plants are going to be the ones to suffer. So what exactly are we up against? Well, here's the rundown. Fungal diseases absolutely love all this dampness. Root rot is a huge risk when the soil just can't drain. Your precious nutrients get literally washed away by the downpours. Pests like snails and slugs, they come out in full force. And the weeds, they just grow like crazy. So, how in the world do we fight back against all of that? Well, it all starts from the ground up. Seriously, the first thing we need to do is fortify your garden's foundation, and that means getting the soil right. Okay, if you remember one thing from this entire explainer, let it be this. Drainage is everything. It's your first line of defense. If that rainwater has nowhere to go, your plants are quite literally drowning. This is without a doubt your number one priority. So, how do you do it? Well, there are three main ways. First, you can create a gentle slope, just to kind of nudge the water away. Second, you can mix things like gravel or sand into your soil to help it drain better. Or, and this is my personal favorite, you can use raised garden beds, which physically lift your plant's roots up and away from the soggy ground. Okay, next on our list, mulching. Using organic stuff like rice husks or even just dried leaves is a total game changer. It'll stop the rain from washing away your good topsoil. It keeps those pesky weeds in check, and it acts like a giant sponge, soaking up some of that extra water. Now, this is super important, so listen up. When you lay down that mulch, do not, I repeat, do not pile it right up against the plant stems. Leave a little space, about an inch or two. This lets air get in and prevents moisture from getting trapped, which can cause the stem to rot, which totally defeats the purpose, right? All right, so our soil is prepped and ready for the rain. Now let's move on to the stars of the show, the plants themselves. Because how you manage them is the next piece of the puzzle for a successful rainy season garden. Look, why try to fight the weather when you can just work with it? Picking plants that are native to our climate or just naturally love water is a brilliant move. We're talking about things like kangkong, gabi, malunggay. These plants are basically pros at handling our climate and won't freak out if their roots get a little wet. You also got to give your plants some personal space. Pruning back some of those dense leaves and making sure there's enough room between plants does wonders for air circulation. This helps everything dry out way faster after it rains and seriously cuts down the risk of fungal disease. Just think of it as giving your plants room to breathe. Now, feeding your plants. This gets a little tricky in the rain, mainly because the water just washes all those good nutrients away. So you have to be strategic. Only feed your plants when you get a sunny break. Use slow-release stuff like compost. And please, whatever you do, do not fertilize right before a huge storm is about to hit. It's just a waste. Okay, a quick word about starting new plants. Just forget about planting seeds directly in that wet soil. They'll most likely rot before they even get a chance to sprout. Your best bet is to propagate from cuttings, like with camote tops, or to use seedlings that you've already got growing strong, maybe started indoors. Okay, so you've prepped the soil, you've picked the right plants. Now what? Well, now we enter the final phase. This is where we get into the active, day-to-day defense of your garden. You gotta protect all that hard work. Think of yourself as a garden detective now. You need to be on patrol, looking for the usual suspects: snails, slugs, and any sign of fungal infections. The clues are pretty obvious once you know what to look for. Yellowing leaves, maybe some fuzzy mold, or stems that look like something's been munching on them. check your plants often, especially right after it rains. And when you spot these troublemakers, you don't have to reach for the heavy-duty chemicals. You can fight them naturally. Neem oil is fantastic for fungi. Crushed eggshells make a sharp barrier that snails and slugs hate to cross. And a simple, homemade chili garlic spray can keep a lot of those chewing pests away. Now, let's talk about your baby plants, your seedlings, and the really delicate stuff. They're going to need a little extra TLC. First, make sure they're in pots with really good drainage. You can even whip up some makeshift rain covers. And hey, if they're in pots, the easiest solution is to just move them to a sheltered spot, like under a roof when the rain gets really bad. And when you finally get a break in the clouds and the sun comes out, that's your cue to jump into action. These little sun breaks are golden. Gently pull back any mulch that's gotten really soggy so the soil can breathe and dry out. It's also the perfect time to harvest anything that's ripe or do a little pruning. You know, here's a really cool strategy that a lot of people are using. Go vertical. By using trellises, hanging pots, or wall planters, you can literally lift your plants up and out of the danger zone. It's an awesome way to avoid that soggy, waterlogged soil at ground level. Plus, it saves a ton of space. Phew, okay, we have covered a ton of stuff. I know it's a lot to take in, so to make sure it all sticks, let's do a quick fire recap, a little checklist to lock in the most important things for a successful garden. All right, let's do this fast. 1. Use raised beds for awesome drainage. 2. Mulch, but keep it away from the stems. 3. Give your plants breathing room. 4. Check for pests at least once a week. 5. Only fertilize when it's dry. And 6. Harvest your veggies as soon as they're ready. Got all that? Perfect. You know, when it comes right down to it, the rainy season isn't something you need to conquer. It's just something you need to adapt to. It's all about being a smart, resilient gardener who works with nature instead of against it. And believe me, your garden will absolutely thank you for it. So now that you've got all these tips and tricks up your sleeve, I'll just leave you with this final thought. How are you going to turn this rainy season from a challenge into a real opportunity for your garden to grow? Happy gardening, everyone.